now ask that live stream is started.
I'll move it, Madam Chair. Yes, and we're live.
Right, thank you. Before I formally start the meeting, I confirm that this meeting is being held in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003 and the Licensing Act Hearing Regulations 2005, which allow councils to make their own arrangements for the licensing subcommittees to hear matters in connection with the premises licence. I will begin by introducing the subcommittee members, officers who will be present at the meeting. I'm the Chair, Councillor Polly Andrews, and we have also Councillors Claire Davis and Councillor Dave Davis who are with us also. I assure you they're not related, in spite of a similarity of name. The legal advisor to my left, to my right rather, sorry, is Laura Lucas. The clerk of the subcommittee is Matthew Evans. Technical support is Alfie Rees-Glynos. And other attendees will be introduced at relevant stages of the meeting. Please note the following comment points with regard to the conduct of the meeting. The Council is video and audio streaming this meeting live on the internet and making a recording. The recording forms part of the public record of the meeting and will be available on the Council's website. Please remember that what you say or do in this meeting has a global reach and will be available, and your actions should be chosen carefully. The chat facility has been switched off to ensure that attendees' contributions can be offered through the spoken voice and for the public record. Please ensure that all your mobile phones and other devices are switched to silent. If any remote attendee loses connection, the meeting will be paused, to ascertain if the connection can be restored quickly. If it is not possible to recover the connection within a reasonable amount of time, the meeting will continue as long as a quorum of subcommittee members remains able to hear the proceeding and be heard. If you plan to leave before the end of the meeting, please can you indicate this in advance. Are there any questions about the procedures before we continue? No? Thank you. I will now proceed with the formal agenda of the meeting. Apologies for absence. We don't have any, do we?
No apologies.
No substitutes? No?
Nope.
Thank you. Are there any interest to be declared for the item on the agenda today? No? Well, we will now move to the first substantive item on the agenda. This is an application to grant a premises licence in respect of the Agent's House, Whitney Village Road, Whitney-on-Wye, Herefordshire, HR 38E8, Licensing Act 2003. The purpose is to consider the application for a grant of premises licence in respect of the Agent's House, Whitney Village Road, Whitney-on-Wye, under the Licensing Act 2003. In attendance, we have in the room, on behalf of the Licensing Authority, Emma Bowell and Fred Spriggs. And remote attendees, for the applicant, Mr. James Taylor. Mr. Taylor, can you see and hear me clearly?
I can.
You can. Thank you very much. The order of speakers will be first Emma Bowell on behalf of the Licensing Authority, and then Mr. Taylor, who is the applicant. Emma, would you like the floor is yours?
Thank you, Chair. As the Chair rightly said, we're here today to consider the grant of a premise licence in respect of the Agent's House in Whitney-on-Wye. The subcommittee determined that the recommendations are that the application with a view to promote the licensing objectives in the overall interest of the local community. It should give appropriate weight to steps that are appropriate to promote those licensing objectives, representations including any supporting information presented by all parties, the guidance issued to local authorities under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, and the Herefordshire Council Statement of Licensing Policy 2020 to 2025. And the reasons for those recommendations: it ensures compliance with the Licensing Act 2003. There are alternative options open to the committee. Is grant the licence subject to conditions that are consistent with the operating schedule. Grant the licence subject to modified conditions to that of the operating schedule. To exclude from the scope of the licence any of the licensable activities to which the application relates. To refuse to specify a person on the licence as the premises supervisor, or to refuse the application. The application for grant of premise licence has received relevant representations and is therefore brought before the subcommittee for determination today. Herefordshire Council Statement of Licensing Policy 2020 to 2025 states all representation must be relevant. For example, they must be about the likely effect of the grant of the application. This followed paragraph 8.57 in the section 182 guidance, which uses the same wording. The details of the application are as follows. The applicant is limited. We received the application on the 24th of August 23. 28-day consultation started on the 25th of August 23, and 28-day consultation ended on the 21st of September 23. The application can be found at Appendix 1 and requests the grant of a premise licence to allow the following licensable activities. Recorded music, indoors and outdoors, Friday from 7 p.m. until 2300, Saturday midday to 4:30 and from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m, and Sunday midday to 11 p.m. Sell and supply of alcohol for consumption on the premises, Monday to Sunday, midday until 11 p.m. Under the Live Music Act of 2012, as amended, an alcohol licensed premises can have live and or recorded music from 8 a.m. until 11 p.m. for up to 500 people, without the need for these activities to be on the premises licence. 2 representations have been received from the responsible authorities. These are Trading Standards and the Licensing Authority. The sets of conditions proposed by them have been accepted by the applicant and can be found at Appendix 2. And these will form part of the licence if granted. 3 relevant representations have been received from members of the public in line with the licensing objective prevention of public nuisance, which the licensing authority has accepted as being relevant. Following sight of the public representations, the applicant decided to withdraw the need for recorded music off the application. Therefore, 2 of the representations fell away as not being relevant. So that leaves just the one representation to consider. On the 26th of September 23, the licensing authority wrote to the objector, as they wish to remain anonymous, outlining the application made and the conditions proposed and agreed to adhere to, in the anticipation it would alleviate any concerns that they may have had. To date, the licensing authority has not received any reply, and that letter can be found at Appendix 3. As a result of that, the one representation made by the public deemed relevant can be found at Appendix 4. Any decision may have an impact on the local community today. There are environmental impacts, ecology duty, and legal implications set out in this report that your legal advisor can advise you on further if need be. This report is in relation to a premise licence under the Licensing Act 2003, and as such there are minimal resource implications for the council, and there are unlikely to be any financial implications for the council as a licensing authority at this time. There is a right of appeal under Schedule 5, Part 1 of the Licensing Act. The applicant may appeal against any decision within 21 days of written notification being served on them. Because of that, there is little risk involved in this due to the decision notice being served and the appeal period of the 21 days being notified. All responsible authorities and members of the public living within Herefordshire have been consulted, and appendices 1 to 4 were found at the back of this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to Mr. James Taylor, who is the applicant.
Hello, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Good. Fantastic. I'm assuming that we just have to explain what we wanted to do, and it was all about just allowing us to offer alcoholic beverages to our guests at our bed and breakfast. This was on arrival if they were having afternoon tea with us, and we have a large garden which we've put a bar area and a kitchen area so that they can have an evening meal and a drink with us. But this was only meant to be for our guests that are on site. The representation, which is the reason that we're all here, is from Mr. and Mrs. Mr. and Mrs. Anonymous, and they've asked that it prevents public nuisance because playing music and selling alcohol would disturb the relative peace and quiet of the neighbourhood. Although we're not supposed to know who the anonymous party are, it wasn't rocket science to work out that there is only really 2 residential.
We understand that, Mr. Taylor, but as far as we're concerned, it's still anonymous.
Yes, no, that's absolutely fine. But between us and any residential property, and certainly the ones where anonymous is, there is a petrol station, forecourt, a main road, and about 4 properties between us and them. And on this stretch of road itself, they actually own, well, sorry, there's 3 bed and breakfasts, 1 holiday let from the petrol station, a refrigeration unit, a pub and a campsite, as well as our bed and breakfast and self-catering accommodation. So we get an awful lot of noise from the campsite of an evening during the summer where people are outside playing music. We are not going to cause any disruption to that at all. We're literally going to have quiet background music for our guests.
Thank you. You say your bed and breakfast. Do you do evening meals as well?
We don't at the moment, although it's something that we can offer. We have fishermen stay sometimes who get up early and don't want to go to the pub of an evening, and therefore, you know, to be able to offer them an evening meal and a pint of beer would be, you know, to them, we have a lot of repeat guests that feel that would be a great thing for them to have.
Right, thank you. Committee, do you have any questions you wish to ask Mr. Taylor?
I only have one question, and that is do you intend just to provide this service for your guests staying with you?
Yes, exactly. Yes, I mean that is primarily what we're doing, and I can't see it. Well, it won't go any further than that. It will just be our guests. We want to keep this as a small business. We enjoy having guests. We love having people here, and we make it a very personal touch. And if you read our reviews online, you'll see exactly what we mean. You know, people love coming back here time and time again, and it's because of the personal service they get. So for us to serve a beer in the garden or cook somebody a burger of an evening or a pizza, you know, it might just be 2 people or 4 people, but we have the capacity here of 12 guests. So if there are other guests here and we're serving somebody in the garden, the last thing we want to do is annoy other guests by being too loud. So, you know, the whole thing will be counterproductive. Sorry, there's one part I missed. So, sorry, going off tact a little bit. It says about the alcohol and music is proposed for the residents of the agent's house only. Surely invitations to friends who may be residing nearby could lead to a bigger gathering than the premises is licensed for. That was part of the representation. Well, we kind of just poo-pooed that on the basis that, well, we could do that anyway. We don't need a license to have our friends over.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, do you have any questions you would like to ask?
Yes, well, Councillor Davis has actually asked the question and I was interested in about evening meals.
Yes.
So you have answered it, thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't think we've got any other questions at the moment. Thank you.
Chair, could the licensing authority just make comment on one aspect which has been mentioned?
What's that?
Mr. Taylor has mentioned the fact that he's got a bar in the garden, but on the plan I've got no bar shown at all in relation to that.
Okay, it's not a bar as such. It's basically just a counter. It's just where somebody can sit. We have a kitchen that we've built outside. I think on the plan it shows an outside kitchen.
Yes, it does.
Yes, and all we've got is like a countertop next to it. It's not a bar as such with spirits and things like that. There's no alcohol out there at all. It's just a kitchen, a countertop where people can sit. It's just a seating area. Yeah, we've got pictures of it if you'd like to have a look.
What you're saying is that you would give them their glass of wine or their beer and they would take it and sit outside and put it on this counter. Is that it?
Yes, exactly.
It's not a bar as such where you serve alcohol from it?
No, not at all. We don't actually have a bar here. All the alcohol will be stored. We've shown on the map, on the plans where the alcohol is stored, and anything will be from there.
So people would you would give them their alcohol in-house, so to speak, and they would take it outside with them. Right.
There's I don't know if you can see that.
It's my brother building the
That's us building it.
And a fire.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Briggs, are you happy with that? Are you?
Yes, thank you, sir. I think it's probably a misunderstanding of the term bar. When I think of bar, I think of
Absolutely, that's our fault.
I like to want this clarified. Thank you. Right, well, thank you, Mr. Taylor. I don't think we've got any other questions. We will now put you back in the waiting room. 10 minutes? Okay. Right. Give you our response in 10 minutes. Village Road, Whitney on Wye. The subcommittee's decision is to grant the licence, the application as applied for with the additional conditions which were put forward by the licensing authority and trading standards and agreed by the applicant. The subcommittee has considered the verbal representation heard today and the written representation from a member of the public and fully recognise the concerns raised and the reasons why the representation was made. However, the subcommittee considers the application made with the additional conditions will promote the licensing objectives. So, thank you very much, Mr. Taylor. Right. So you can now offer your guests a drink with their evening meal. I now close the meeting at 10 minutes past